So, as we know, when a child in Arkansas is abused, they are taken out of their home by DHS and they are generally put in a foster home. Sometimes, eventually, they are put up for adoption. But what happens when the foster home that they are put in becomes a place of continued abuse? Now, this case is a little bit older. It's from 2017, but I think it's still important to talk about. So, back in March of 2017, there was a long investigation that was done by Van Buren County DHS in reference to abuse that was allegedly happening in a foster home. Four children in the home reported physical and emotional abuse to DHS. So, at that time, the oldest child was 13 years old. That child was put into the foster home of Martha and Richard Roche as a foster child, but the child was adopted. Now, that child told investigators that after she was adopted, she underwent extreme and repeated cruelty by being fed bologna sandwiches and rice repeatedly. She was also intentionally burned with a curling iron, and she reported to doctors that she had severe back pain. Now, it was disclosed that the child had a history of trauma to their back. That history, what it is specifically, is not listed, but a CT scan was done, and the child did have the result of that trauma could be seen on a CT scan. Also, they were able to take photos of injuries that were consistent with what the child disclosed to investigators. The next child was around 12 years old at the time the investigation occurred, and that child disclosed that one of the defendants threw a glass at him. The glass hit the floor in front of him, shattered, and shards of glass cut him along his ankle on his left leg. There were photos of that injury that were also consistent with what the child told investigators. The next child in the home would have been about 10 years old at the time of the investigation. And that 10-year-old told investigators that one of the defendants actually stabbed him in the shoulder with a dinner fork that actually left a permanent mark on his shoulder after it healed. Photos were taken that were consistent with the injuries and what the child disclosed. The youngest child would have been about 8, and that child disclosed to investigators that she had been shocked in her quote unquote private area with a cattle prod by her adoptive mother. Now, all of these children told investigators that they were locked in their bedrooms, and when they slept on mats in the floor that were covered with a tarp because they wet themselves and their beds. The two oldest children were made to urinate and defecate in a large plastic paint bucket. It's okay though, because sometimes they were allowed to empty their paint bucket in the woods. All of the children reported that they were often made to wear plastic bags as clothing. They said their parents would cut holes in the top of the plastic bag for their heads to go and holes in the sides for their arms. That's all outrageous, though the parents probably denied all of those accusations, didn't they? Actually, no. The mom, Martha Roche, told police that she did lock the children in their rooms when she and her husband went to go feed the livestock. She admitted that she and one of the children got into an altercation. She admitted that during that altercation, she kicked the child's feet out from under her, and then the child hit the floor on her back, which caused those injuries I was talking about that were seen on a CT scan. She also admitted that she forced the children to take a bucket into their room and use that bucket as a toilet. Lastly, Martha Roche admitted that she had the children wear plastic trash bags as clothing, but only when she did laundry, which was every day. Martha Roche was arrested and charged with 4 counts of aggravated assault on a household or family member, 1 count of first-degree domestic battery, and 3 counts of second-degree domestic battery. And Richard Roche was charged the same. So the charges against the Roches were actually filed in 2017. In 2018, Richard Roche filed for divorce from Martha, And in November of 2018, he accepted a plea deal. He pled guilty to 2 counts of aggravated assault on a household or family member and was sentenced to 60 months probation. For her part, Martha was not given the same deal. In November 2018, Martha Roche accepted a plea deal. She pled guilty to 4 counts of second-degree domestic battery, and she was sentenced to 10 years in the Arkansas Department of Corrections. This is a little bit of an aside, and maybe you would care, maybe you wouldn't, but as part of the divorce, Martha Roche asked to be returned to her maiden name, Martha Swafford, okay? She is in prison in Arkansas Department of Corrections as Martha Roche, but I guess her name is supposed to be changed back to Martha Swafford, but that's not enough for her. So Martha's name is Martha K. Roche, and in 2021, she actually petitioned a Pulaski County court for an official name change. She asked that her name be changed to Susanna Ruth Tuckerson. And the reason for this, the reason for her request, she actually wrote, was to keep down harassment from her ex-husband, in-laws, and persons from the community upon her release from prison. And honestly, I'll say it right now. I don't think a person who has been convicted of a crime of this nature or any crime against a child should be able to change their name, because then you, as a person in the community, you don't know who you're dealing with. Maybe you've heard the name Martha K. Roche, but Susanna Tuckerson, you don't have any idea who that is or what they have done in their past. And you certainly wouldn't want to allow a person like that around your children. But if you don't know the name, then you're really not able to take the appropriate precautions. You know what I mean? That request to change her name was denied because she's currently in prison. And let's talk about Martha being in prison. So Martha was convicted of this crime in 2018. That's when she accepted the plea deal, at the end of 2018. She only got 10 years. She would have been parole eligible, or was parole eligible, in 2019, but she wasn't paroled. The Arkansas Parole Board actually has denied her multiple times. She is currently sitting in the Arkansas Department of Corrections, and she just this month got another 1 year denial, meaning she won't be able to apply for parole again until this time next year. Now, she did get a major disciplinary a year ago for like insolence to a staff member, so maybe that played a part with her latest denial, but she's been denied so many other times. She was sentenced to that 10 years in prison. So technically, since she was arrested in 2017, if she got time served, any sort of time served, I would say that she will flatten her sentence in 2027 to 2028. And they can make her sit in prison that long if that's what they opt to do. And who knows, at this point, maybe they opt to do that. Maybe they go ahead and give her parole in a year, who knows? It would be something to watch if you're interested in that case.